Thank you for being here. Can you hear me all right? Okay, thanks. When I've been asked what prompted me to move from Bend, Oregon to Richmond, Virginia, I like to say that it was time for me to take a quantum shift in my life. It started with a retreat here in the Richmond area exactly a year ago. It was sponsored by Sanctuary of Earth. And a short visit to Monticello, followed by a weekend at Nag's Head, revealed to me a long-held vision that would be realized here in this energy field where a great nation was founded. And it all started a long time before in San Francisco. San Francisco. It began with a phone call from a woman named Donna, and I didn't know her, just out of the blue. She said that she and her husband had purchased 40 acres on the south base of Mount Shasta in Northern California. Adjustments in life are always good. Okay, Mount Shasta. How many of you have been there? Just a few of you. Powerful, right? Very powerful. A spiritual vortex of enormous magnitude. And she said that they were guided to buy this land in order to create a spiritual retreat center called MorningStar within the energy field of Mount Shasta. And she didn't know me, but she and her husband had the intuitive sense that I was the architect they were looking for to design that center. And I said, oh, I like the sound of that. And when she described it, I said, you know, it sounds very familiar. It sounds like a dream I had a few weeks ago. So we decided to get together on the site and walk the land, feel the energy, and get to know each other. And I noticed that immediately we recognized each other as kindred spirits. So that meant that we could dispense with a lot of the formalities. And although it was relatively new in my life, it provided an opportunity to be intuitive and in the moment rather than having to watch all the particulars along the way. And I said that we would be likely guided by intuitive forces that would help us to understand what steps to take going forward. And that there was no formula for this. And I said, I don't know that I have the experience to do this for you. And I don't know anyone else who has as an architect. But I will promise you this, that if we do go ahead with it, I will only proceed if I get guidance from upstairs. And we agreed to that. And I said, oh, I noticed something on the ground there. It was a little stone. And I just picked it up and threw it in my pocket. I don't know why. But I found out the next night I started to hold it in my hand as I slept. And over several week period, guess what happened? That little chip of the energy field of Mount Shasta was one with me. I was one with it, however it goes. And I thought, well, let's just take this one step at a time. Let's not rush into things. Let's see what unfolds now that we've made our connection. That was a pretty smart way to proceed because you could be putting the cart before the horse. We needed to have a horse that would lead. So a couple of weeks transpired, and I found myself back at home in San Francisco. I need my martini. Is this too slow a delivery? Okay, good. I want it to be a story, like a conversation with you. Why? Because stories are much more interesting and they are engaging, and we can fill in between the lines with our own perceptions, all right, and values. So let me see, where was I? San Francisco. And I found myself invited to a dinner party at a friend's home. And I had met a group of people who were leading transcendental meditation. And I was learning from them how to do that. And they were there. And it turns out it was October 12th. I'm going to scare you now. 1975. Okay. Nobody thinks it. Okay, that's good. And they were about to meditate as I walked in and silently took a seat around the dinner table. And in a few moments, I noticed a presence in the space that I likened to liquid gold. Amazing, blissful. And that presence manifested itself in a column of light that entered the crown of my head, just like that. And I had never experienced anything like that before. But I know this was not joking around. This was serious business. And anyway, I grabbed a pen and a piece of paper, and suddenly an image started to come through my hands, and I had no idea what it was. And the next image will show you what popped up. There you go. That's it. It was a square, and then another couple of squares that were superimposed and juxtaposed were set within it. And there was a circular hub, and then like a crossing, like a path aligned with the cardinal directions. And then there were also 4 components located diagonally in the square at the 4 corners. And I couldn't understand what this was, but I recognized that it was something very powerful. And it looked to me like, maybe there's sacred geometry here. I wasn't that familiar with sacred geometry yet. Um, but it felt like it was perhaps the concept for a temple, because it was so powerful. It only took about 2 minutes to sketch, but it felt really on purpose. And I was thinking, well, what could this be for? And then before I could finish articulating my question, the answer came. Remember MorningStar Mount Shasta? Well, the next day I got on the phone and called Donna, and I said in a rather sheepish way, I think I got the idea. And she said, okay, that sounds exciting. Let's get together with my husband. And we did. And they decided that, yes, this looked really much like a diamond in the rough, going with these very broad strokes here that had purpose, and that the the uh, cultivation of that diamond would be what we do. We bring out it like a crystal that has facets that reflect the light in many different ways. And we agreed to move ahead with this concept. And I said, well, just remember, this is not a plan. This is just the concept. It's kind of an energy field that is meant to be expressed in an environment. And you say it's a spiritual retreat center that you want. So I guess the concept is to create an environment that enhances the conscious growth of individuals in a harmonic correspondence with the vibrations of that environment. And so we agreed to move ahead and explore it. But I said, I must tell you that since it is only a concept, it may take quite a long time for it to generate into an architectural plan, like a conceptual design. And it will take a lot more time eventually to develop it into what's called design development phase, which gets very specific, and even further into the construction documents, including a lot of engineering that has to be coordinated. This all takes time and money. And if you're in agreement with going ahead with it, I'll just accept a very token amount, which was $500, to explore the design concept. We agreed and we shook hands. That clinched the deal. And I had no idea what was ahead, but I understood it would be a great ride for all of us. Okay. So I haven't read a single word from this page. Am I doing okay? All right. So is it a story? Okay. So um, we soon met to discuss the idea. Okay. So I I took the time in my home studio to explore what that concept could mean in terms of design. And I was getting input from upstairs, and I noticed that that presence was there anytime I was. It wasn't when I was ready. It wasn't when it was ready because it was always present. And I just needed to align with that harmonic correspondence. And so I found that the more I was looking into that concept, the more my heart chakra opened. And I began to feel the harmonic qualities of the design speaking to me and helping me to be transformed I guess would be the right word, or just evolved into that kind of vibrational context whereby instead of thinking with my left brain, I'd be thinking with my heart and my brain. And that instead of me just expecting upstairs to decide what to do, it was always, what shall we do? It was co-creation. And that too was very new to me, but it felt so natural. Everything was done in the second person. And I realized that when I was thinking of something, I'd say, well, what if we do this? And what if we shift that? And it was just like, just follow the energy and see how it expresses the potential. And maybe make it even look like your own heart in a way. Not organically, but vibrational. Does that make sense? Of course. Okay. Um, well, the more I look into sacred geometry, the next slide, the more I recognize that the harmonic correspondence that I was talking about has been known for millennia, even longer. And it comes from the growth factor that is called P in the Greek interpretation. And that's a correspondence of proportion that is manifest in all of nature. So that signature is in everything that grows, including us, when we are but a fetus. Our, our spine is rotating like that. You know, you look at a sunflower, you see the spreading of the design. It's just tracking the sun. And so everything is revolving in these spirals. And so also our solar system isn't circular. It's really more of a spiral configuration because it's never really in the same place twice. It's traveling in space. And even as we return to the equinox next year at this time, it won't be identical because of those quantum shifts. Right? So that's where we are. That's the growth process that manifests our consciousness as well as our physicality. And so we grow from that into other forms, as we see in this next slide, which is known as the chambered nautilus. There it is. That was a tiny shell I once found on the beach, just outside on the coast of San Francisco, and I kept it. And it came in very handy here because it demonstrates not only the shape of this principle, but something very fascinating as well. And that is that in the growth from one chamber to the next, which is a spin of the spiral, its past chambers become gaseous and therefore virtually weightless, and it provides buoyancy so that this organism is able to be stable in the water, but also freed of the weight of its past. And isn't that a wonderful metaphor, though, that for us to follow, that we could get rid of the past that no longer serves us? How? By thinking so, by letting go, by displacing. Well, nature abhors a vacuum, so you can't just get rid of something. You have to displace it with something better or by your will. And that would be joyful, prosperous, transformed, weightless, free of the past that no longer serves us, that would help us to be transformed. Talking about quantum shift, that's a big part of it. So that carried through into the next sequence that I found very helpful, because sacred geometry represents the harmonics in nature in various forms. And we see the flower of life in the upper left corner. I just bought this at Walmart. It's a cat toy. Okay, there it is. There's 16 circles around a central hub. There's a harmonic relationship in that configuration that is one of the most highly evolved configurations known for human awareness. There's also considered what's the seed of life, which is actually 6 spheres all touching around the central seed point. There's also what is called the tree of life, which you can see here. It's a Kabbalistic configuration inside the sea of life. And that too represents a very transformative geometry. And so we see that configuration also expressed from the seed point of an idea out in various generations and spinning out. And that can be seen in nature, it can be seen in our own thinking, it can be seen in our organizational development. This is a configuration that I had developed several years ago, where 3 of these logarithmic spirals would interface coming from the seed of origin that is shared by all 3. And this we're considering as a part of our logo for MorningStar. Okay. So the seed point of life was the origin of this. And I found a fuller array of sacred geometry began to enlighten me as I searched meaning within the designs of nature, because all of nature does have that encoded. And for me to explore that helped me to understand on a very deep level what it was that I was really pursuing. In this context, the quantum shift seemed to lift the built environment with enlightened thoughts. As an architect, that was a kind of extraordinary concept, I guess, because we tend to be very logical and functionally oriented, but we're also visionary. And so the two come together in a coalescence of vision, function, and form. The research of very ancient civilizations seem to know a lot about this. And there are ancient civilizations that long precede a recorded history that we're now discovering with LiDAR technology and other forms of archaeological exploration. We cannot understand, we can't possibly comprehend how they did so many things with such enormous weights and sizes and so on. And the Great Pyramid is just one of many of those, which I've spent a lot of time exploring. So I can only say that my hunch is that they were able to create these incredible relics out of that mindfulness or that mentality that aligns with the harmonics of nature, and that might include a relationship to the, our planetary system and the stars, the lunar influence. There's so many things that are alluded to that we don't generally understand yet, but we're getting there. My thoughts of supporting the weight of the building structure that I was designing did not require exceptional technologies to construct, but mindful approach to design could be lifted by harmonic vibrations. In other words, as we think, so we create. So if I am able to think in an enlightened way, meaning I'm lifted beyond my rational disciplines, which is a very limited set of parameters, then I'm opening myself and my relations to that context of being. So it's not about who I am or who any of us are right now. It's who we are becoming, because we're a continuous process of growth. We're not the same person who walked into this room half an hour ago. We're not the same person that woke up this morning. And we won't be that same person now. So the continuum of time is that it is not linear. And it's not something that we can just say, well, because of this date and that date, such and such is a rational evolution. That's the old way of thinking. And our paleontologists have been scratching their heads for eons trying to figure out how Homo sapiens suddenly appeared. By looking at the linear evolution, it doesn't make sense. But we have to step outside of the linear because, as Einstein pointed out, that's an illusion. It does maintain in our solar system, sure, because our sun has an impact on us on a 365 and a quarter day cycle. And so many of the rhythms and cycles in our life are evolving accordingly. But outside of this solar system, time does not exist in a linear way. In fact, past, present, and future are simultaneous. So some of these ancient civilizations are probably well informed of that, being extraterrestrial beings. They lived for much longer periods of time, as our biblical records indicate. So we can tune into that kind of vibration as a way to provide for transformation in our lives by creating a kind of environment of mental acuity and sensitivity, as well as physical presence in the environment. More than ever, I feel the revelation is expressed in the flower of life, which is said to include our cerebral intelligence at the interface of science and spirituality or metaphysics. The embodiment of advanced ecological technologies could also support the functional operation of this spiritual portal that we're calling MorningStar. It's not just a building. I built a scale model to help my clients perceive those spatial qualities, lifting off the printed surface into three dimensions that help them tremendously as we proceeded, but the project had advanced well beyond their original concept. They said that they loved the design. We'd spent a lot of time exploring it together and what that would mean in so many ways. They loved the design, but unfortunately, the love in their relationship was no longer viable. They needed to sell the property and move apart. The revelation was not really a surprise to me because I perceived that their energies were not very well harmonized as we're going forward. And although they loved the project, it was kind of peripheral in a way to their personal relationship. So that news would have put me into a tailspin earlier in my career after all that. But I was practicing what I was learning, and that was to stay present and not spin off into fear. And put into her perspective, their sponsorship of the design made it possible to pursue it further in another more compatible context. They provided the initial thrust of a timeless endeavor, and I was grateful for the opportunity that unfolded. A year later, I presented the design to a world-famous New Age community called Findhorn in the Outer Hebrides of northern Scotland, where I went in 1977 with my two young daughters on a life-changing 2-week retreat, following what was dubbed by author Paul Hawken in The Mystery of Findhorn. Any of you been to Findhorn? Any of you heard of it before? My kids went back afterwards to their mother with great tales of the magic they encountered in a place she would never go. It changed their lives and mine in a profound way. In the retreat environment of elevated consciousness. And I found that by having that experience, it would impact the rest of their lives, and it has. And mine as well. During that time, I also met a lady who was guided to come to Findhorn at that time to look for the MorningStar, and then she saw my presentation projected on the screen at the community gathering. She said, "Oh, MorningStar, Mount Shasta. This is the guy I've been guided to meet." So we connected and spent 5 hours afterwards engaged in a remarkable conversation. And it led eventually to us becoming married and starting a new center that would move from Mount Shasta, where it was no longer founded, to a place further north on the Oregon-California border on 365 acres of land just outside the city of Ashland. 365, that sounds familiar, doesn't it? The number of days in a year. After 14 amazing years in that center, having built an off-grid eco-shelter as a school for ecological studies, instead of MorningStar, which would have been a much bigger project to develop. That was what we had accomplished in terms of building, but we also had enjoyed the celebration of so many wonderful events and the raising of consciousness and love for many years in that context of Ashland area. And then I moved on with the plans under my arm after it was time to leave that 365 acres. And I moved on to Bend, Oregon. And it didn't take long for the design to attract a lot of other like-minded people who said, you know, we need this here in this community, and we need it now. So we created a gathering that was made to represent a context in which the building could be manifest and operational, and it was called Light Path Educational Center. And during that time, there was a lot of improvements to the design that expanded its functionality and made it much more financially viable and more effective as a center of spiritual and holistic learning. Also, as part of that time together, we had a number of journeys that went to sacred places, one of which I had co-sponsored, the Sacred Places of Ancient Egypt, and that was in 2019. As stated at the beginning of this talk, exactly 1 year ago, I attended a spiritual retreat here in Richmond and connected with several friends I had met online through the Sanctuary of Earth. Most everything slipped into place for me here. It just seemed like it was natural that I'd be here. And the attraction of MorningStar again manifested another group of wonderful kindred spirits, and we are now working together as a team to help bring that project into full realization. And several of these team members are here today, and we'll be hearing from a few of them later on during this time. I also felt here in the Richmond area an energy that inspired the founding of this country, as I said before. And within 2 weeks of moving here in January, while climbing the steps to an IONS meeting in this very space, I met Suzanne Harmon Munson, author of The Metaphysical Thomas Jefferson. I thought, oh my God. I'd wanted to meet someone who knew more about Jefferson in an exceptional way, and here she was. And when we walked through the door, guess what? There was Thomas Coates about ready to deliver his incredible talk on the evolution of God in human consciousness. That hit the spot. At that meeting and others, I've met several who became close friends and colleagues. In fact, some of my dearest friends sit in this room or have done over the time. And no doubt I've made a right choice in moving here. I'm now honored to take this podium today, representing several wonderful people. We're evolving a mission to create the MorningStar Retreat Center as a portal to nurture the experience of transformation built with sacred geometry and advanced ecological technology. Its ecological design will embody the spiritual principles of synergy of form and function. Thank you. The structural envelope of the building, the right drawing for that, will provide enduring sustainability as a legacy to future generations. This cross-section of the building delineates its original structural configuration surrounding the illuminated central atrium right here. And the large skylight here provides light into the entire space here, but also through higher closed windows into surrounding bedrooms. It's the only clear surface on the roof, and the rest of it is going to have a solid roof. And on the south facet, it will have photovoltaic panels for generating about 65% of the energy that is consumed in the building. Here's a model of it. And you'll see more of this in the slide, but I wanted to show it to you in, in, in 3 dimensions here because you have to see it that way in order to really get into that space. And I encourage you, if you're interested, to come up here afterwards and look at it yourself. It has a lot of features that don't seem to be evident in just 2-dimensional drawings. And when you see it in 3 dimensions, you can see it in a way come to life. I built that model early on, as I mentioned, in order to show the clients, but it has had to be adapted to some of the newer ideas over time that required some modifications in the design. And the model reflects a lot of that itself. So we'll look at some of those components. Hold on, before we move from here, I was going to say there will be among the ecological practices, in addition to the grid-tied photovoltaic system, the water conservation, which will include rainwater runoff tied to underground cisterns for irrigation, and energy conservation produced by high-performance insulated exterior walls, windows, and doors. And Energy Star ratings will set high efficiency requirements for lighting and appliances. And low VOC materials will be specified for finishes and related building practices. Mechanical systems will include energy recovery ventilator and air filtration system, ductless mini split, and ground source heat pump, or geothermal. So it will embody those principles that harmonize with the holistic intention of this environment. Okay. The ground floor plan was designed to nurture conscious growth and integration of knowledge and experience. So this is the ground level. And this is simplified, but it has 4 activity spaces around the central atrium. If you remember the square configuration in the conceptual design, well, that was actually echoed in the second floor configuration, which we'll look at in a moment. But the ground floor had a space for meeting and for eating, a kitchen in between, 2 solar greenhouses, a fitness space, and what has become a harmonics studio. There's 2 solar greenhouses here for growing organic food and for passive solar energy and highly oxygenated air. The second floor, as it was drawn in the concept, has a central atrium. Now it got squared off in order to optimize the spaces around it. So it has 16 bedrooms that are in clusters of 4 at each corner here, and they share outdoor covered balconies that give the occupants a place for perhaps a nighttime way of inhaling the fresh air of the night air and checking out the wonder of the starry heavens, but also to fulfill Khalil Gibran's suggestion in the prophet. You'll come to a point in your life where you'll bless darkness as you bless light. It's like it's part of a continuum. There's one, the one and the other are interwoven. It's a continuum. It doesn't exist as polarities that are working in opposition. It's working as yin and yang. And so the design embodies those principles, so people will be able to live in an existing space, say for 3 nights or maybe 9 on extended stays, where their interaction with a group of up to 32 people, if it's really all double occupancy, or as small as 16, but it's just single occupancy, um, and in between. So the group gestalt is where the synergy takes place in terms of learning in and together and from our interactions. And I discovered that wonderfully at Findhorn, that the relationships that were developed during that that retreat endured for a long, long time, and we became very close friends because we were on a similar path of mutual enhancement and evolution. So then the last of the spaces here is the meditation loft, which is organized around the central atrium, and there is a circular railing there that represents the configuration of the heavens symbolically interacting with the square configuration, which is symbolically understood to represent Earth. And when we use a space like meditation loft, which is dedicated to say morning and evening silence and inward journey, the energy builds in that space, and there is a continuum that enhances our consciousness as well as our subconscious, and where we begin to operate at a much higher level of frequency. So we find that we will be exploring many of the modalities. And also there is a possibility that some of the bedrooms, say, around the inner core, which are mostly single occupancy rooms that could be used as double when it's necessary, but it also could be equipped with, say, a day bed instead. It can be used as perhaps an office or a space for individual healing and other therapies. So it's flexible, but it's largely based upon the concept of having the residential retreats. Okay. So moving on, the model shows us that here's the central atrium space where the meditation loft is focused, and you can see that the light from above will actually filter through here and will be edited by filters so as to minimize the solar radiation at the high level of the summer. And the configuration of the exterior, this is the original design, had recessed covered spaces on 3 sides, and the 4th side is the configuration of the greenhouses. Yeah. Now this is a model configuration showing the upgraded design, as you see here, where the 2nd floor was expanded outward in order by 4 feet all the way around in order to increase the size of the bedroom suites to include a bathroom in every suite and much better closet facilities. And it also includes a covered entry that acts as a transition into the interior space. And because when you go from outside to inside to a temple, it's always a good idea to have a conditioning filter that prepares you to move into that space. And the if you go to the next slide, so this configuration right here is an experiment that I've been playing with that would take a relic that was found by my mentor around the Great Pyramid that has he has discovered as a key to the dimensions of the Great Pyramid as a model of Earth and its periodicities and its dimensions and so on that are used as a honing instrument as well as, I believe, a repository of the ancient sciences. And I'm thinking that this little piece of stone that he cast with his own methods as a copy could be replicated as a crafted item in scale with the building as an item that would correspond with some of the ancient sciences that are encoded in the pyramid. It's just an idea, and I'm not sure that it's going to be a valid thing to do, but I was just playing with it because it was fascinating that it would fit directly into that slot anyway. Yes. So also what we're seeing here is playing with the idea of planting trees inside the atrium. And it had always been my idea right from the beginning that there would be trees, but it kind of fell off for a time. But in recent months, I found some growth that looked like it could represent trees in the atrium that would potentially create a sense of interface with nature and allow us to introduce some small winged friends who would turn this into an aviary at times. And their beautiful sounds and their lifted presence could lift our recognition of a heaven on earth, in a sense, and they would be able to interact with the solar greenhouses and maybe help us with bug control, But that's just, playing with certain things where nature can fill in potentialities that will inspire us and maybe humor us, but it will always enrich in one way or another. This is looking down on the model where you can see the configuration of the square set within the circle. Again, the correspondence of Earth within the cosmos. And in a corollary of that, of course, is that the cosmos is within the Earth as well. And just the reflections of trees, so on, this kind of gives a sense of how the building is intended to be one with nature by having its proportions fulfill a correspondence that links us with the universal intelligence and the principles of nature. Yep. This is looking down on the model, which was set over a coffee table, and it just by so-called coincidence, that the corners actually, where they touch the outer ring of the circle, and that corresponds with a part of the design that has been anticipated going forward. And I thought, how remarkable that coincidences keep telling us the same story. This is a view into the covered entryway, which corresponds with the transition that I was talking about, and how now the cantilevered second story provides a canopy for welcoming people into that space. And you can see the relationship of the inner workings of the space below this very simplified exterior shell that is like the cover of a great novel. In a way, it's a simple packaging of an in-depth concept. Yeah, this is looking more into that entry here, and I liken this to some of the Tibetan temples that I've seen, where you don't just walk into the temple without some preparation. You know, there would often be some kind of a component that relates with water and fire, for instance, that prepares you mindfulness if you enter this space. And so there would be a pond in here, there, and from the lights that would lift that space through the water. Now we're getting, okay, this is showing how the building would fit onto an expanded site, where we have the circular configuration that, as I mentioned before, ties in with the corners, the four corners of the of the building on the second floor down to the ground. And we have within it the sacred geometry that is represented in these spaces. And each of these four spaces will have that encoded. And the center point of each of them will be linked by this circle that also corresponds with the tangent of the larger square that fits within the outer square. So you have this square, which is the same size as this square, forming the eight-pointed star that I mentioned. And these points are then expressed on the perimeter of the building. And we have the spaces now open out into these paved areas and relate. So there's more space in here than there was in the original design. And we also have the labyrinths that are planned to be at three of the four corners. These two representing the equinoxes. Let's go back to that one. The equinoxes would be the vernal equinox, which would be the seed of life. This would be the flower of life at the summer solstice, and the tree of life at the autumnal equinox, which is where we are right now. And so that we had worked on earlier as the theme of the seasonal rites of passage, in which we connect with our ancient ancestors and their customs and their spiritual principles that have given us a legacy of conscious evolution that has no boundary. That gives us an opportunity to experience beyond our limited history. Now we can go on to the very last of the slides. This one doesn't show up that well, but it does relate to all those things that I mentioned, but it also presents us with some of the elements of the sacred geometry in the four quadrants. And it does also relate it to the four corners of the Great Pyramid. This star inside of the larger context shows us how the initial concept is housed in the focal point of this center, and it reaches out in four directions. I'm going to summarize. I'm going to just conclude this with a statement that came to me from a very high source along the way in the last several weeks. It's saying that the design of Morningstar came from an archetypal objective of human transformation through architecture, which is not dictated by any array of activities that would be housed there, but rather the vibrational environment that will propagate the synergy of creative learning experiences to evolve in harmony with the vision of human transformation. The sacred geometry of the environment will be a tuning fork of subtle energies and provide the timeless context as a portal of experiencing and exploring human potential. So in other words, in summary, it's saying that by creating a vibrational environment, we can enhance the larger purpose, which is human transformation, by the quality of experience that we have in that space. And it's not just based upon the content of the programs and so on, but the environment itself that is contributing to our sense of oneness and continuity with all that is. And with that, I leave you and thank you for your presence. And I would be happy to address any questions that you might have.
So if anyone online wants to ask a question, please raise your electronic hand so I can see it. Thanks.
Ron, don't be shy. There's something.
And then I just got back from seeing falling water, and so much of this really resonates. Do you find you and Frank Lloyd Wright have a lot of the same concepts?
Yes. He said that he has a name for God, and it's nature. And that's a valid name. But it's also a mindfulness that nature is an expression of what we're coming to know, most of us, that God is energy. God is consciousness. God is life itself. God is a verb, not a pronoun. God is not some human being who touches the finger of another and gives them life. That's an old concept. So the idea of creating a very special environment, which Wright was so masterful in doing, he helped not only the people who lived there, but millions who have passed through there over the years. And an inspiration of that sort is a great legacy. And I feel that he contributed something of great value in falling water, and we were very privileged to have it in close proximity here. Jefferson too was an architect, a different kind of architect who actually replicated a lot of the principles that he had learned from his readings of some of the ancient master builders. And he did a great job given how he was self-taught. And I think he also represented a kind of innovation, shall I say, with his writing machines and all sorts of things that represents an aspect of architecture that tickles our imagination to make us feel like we are contributing to the environment by our thoughts and our willingness to explore and to be present. That's a nice question. Thank you for doing that. Anything else? Would you use the mic?
Bunny was asking, where is it going to be held?
Where will it be built? Yes. Yeah. We're in the process now of beginning to explore that search for the right land and location. And we had earlier a preconceived notion that this would be situated on a large parcel of rural land. Well, that is certainly possible because a lot of retreats are meant, to be nested in the natural environment away from the urban hubbub and so on. But on the other hand, a valid option is something that would probably be done if it were in Japan. That would be to create an oasis within the urban fabric, which is more accessible to others, and certainly be surrounded by a wooded buffer so as to provide privacy and so on, but available to more people and a more perhaps direct contribution to the enrichment of the local culture. And so we're looking at both of those options, and we'll be exploring with the realtor about what is presently available, as we're also exploring ways of raising the funds in order to purchase that property and to develop it. So if any of you know of sources that would help us in those endeavors, please let us know, because this is a networking thing and it's a co-creative process. Okay.
Thank you, Lauren. Can you give us an idea? Can you give us an idea on the square footage or the actual size of the structure?
Yes.
Can we get an idea?
Yes, it's 15,000 square feet in round numbers. Yeah. So that's 2 full floors plus a small amount upstairs for the meditation loft. Yeah. If there are no more questions, what we're planning to do next is to celebrate the equinox by having,
What more, Lord?
okay, great.
Don't be so hurried. One thing, as I was listening to you present this, which I had not frankly thought of before, which of course is one of the reasons for a presentation like this, for new things to come forth. That came to mind is the idea of creating a website and maybe a GoFundMe type page, that sort of thing. Because it seems to me that if this idea were disseminated on a community-wide basis or even larger basis, there would be a strong potential for people becoming interested in it and investing in it.
Thanks, Tom. Yes,
Yeah.
that's in alignment with our thinking. And we have some preliminary ideas for the website development, and we would love to have some added talent in that field of endeavor to assist us in the development of the website. And we are also going to be providing a meet and greet gathering for those who are interested to know more about MorningStar and possibly either becoming part of our planning team and or being on our mailing list to be informed of ongoing events going forward. And so we have a sign-up option here that will be taken around by 2 of our members, Dave and Maggie, in a little while. But before we do that, I'd like to call. Oh,
I have one last
thank you.
question. You've mentioned the word "we" several times and said there's a group
Yes.
of you. Will you share who they are? And you even implied that some of them are here and might speak, or is that not going to happen? But I'd like to know who the group is, so we can
Okay. Well.
acknowledge them too.
Okay. Those of you who are part of this group, would you mind standing? Here we are. Thank you. Yeah. So, and this is a wonderful group of people, and we have a lot of courage and a lot of will that go together. We have a vision, we have a mission, and our mission really is to create the MorningStar Retreat Center as a portal of transformation with the use of sacred geometry and ecologically advanced design. In keeping with what I was saying here, these concepts are to be embodied in the creation of this kind of environment. And the idea of it being a portal, it means it's like a capsule of energy that, or an environment of transformational quality that will assist people in making magnificent shifts in their lives. It's not just improvement of what they've done before, but moving beyond the old familiar things that no longer serve us into a new way of expressing that potential. Are there any other questions or remarks this time? Yes.
Maybe I missed this, but exactly who would use this? Are you going to have a manager or a group, or just one concept, or in some Muslim group use it, or who are the users?
Okay, so that's a good question. There are a couple of different scenarios that we're looking at. I would say largely that our organization will be focused upon the provision of this environment, along with a certain program of teachings and modalities for enhancing our individual and mutual transformation, as well as providing the space for allied organizations to have their events there. And there may be some times when we host special speakers or teachers and so on who want to provide their special gifts within that configuration. Now, mind you, it's not a public space like this. You know, it's really meant for retreats. So when it becomes necessary, or rather desirable, to have a large event, we'll likely be hiring a venue that is built for that kind of activity, rather than trying to maintain a large venue when we're in fact oriented towards smaller events. So we're going to be looking at how best to configure that organizational infrastructure, and we have a number of ideas that we're going to be working on, and we're going to be open to input from others who have some ideas and experience in those areas. And that's one of the things that we would like to explore at our next meeting going forward, and that'll be at Dave and Lisa's home on Sunday the 29th from noon till 2. And if you would be so kind as to let us know if you're interested in that. We have a sign-up sheets that will allow you to give us your contact information so that we can be in touch with you. And people online, we'll need to connect with them as well.
You began this in the 70s. Have you got a projected time for when it'll be finished? Will it be finished in our lifetime?
Yes. Oh, yes. It feels like the time is imminent. Moses only had 40 years. I've been at this 50, and I don't think I want to outdo him that much.
Lauren, thank you. Kind of a left brain question, and it might be more of an engineering question, but I'm just curious, what types of materials are you planning to use? Is it mostly glass or steel, or what materials are you thinking?
Well, a lot of it will be glass. I'm thinking that the main spaces that the four main activity spaces will want to open out, just like having glass panels that hold against the structural panels there that open the space to the outside. But then the upper portion where it's solid, having moved from the West Coast to this environment, I'm thinking of the possibility of just, what if we gave brick another chance to manifest on this kind of building on the upper portion, which would be not only contemporary, but beyond any normal description, and being put into a context that feels familiar in one sense, and therefore inviting, and also in a context that invites a new perception of how we enclose space and how we relate to our environment. So that's a possibility, but it would also be highly insulated, breathing walls largely, and a lot of cross ventilation and so on that provides for fresh air and air to be oxygenated and so on. Yeah.
Your materials will determine cost, but do you have an approximate cost of what it would take to build this?
Well, we're going to be talking with some builders who have this kind of experience to get a better handle on it with 15,000 square feet and so on. I'm reluctant to use standards that apply just to commercial buildings because often commercial buildings are not like this. And they provide a lot of flex open space that require tenants to improve to make it habitable or usable. In this case, it's going to be much more specifically developed. And Dave and I just spoken about this yesterday, and there's a network that you're involved with that I'm going to be talking with builders and so on who have this kind of experience using alternative construction and a lot of ecologically sound technologies and so on. Those are the people who I would love to see building this and don't want to have to, go through the back door. We want to have people who have that experience and that intention to do it with that mindfulness. So we'll have better idea on the cost going forward. Yeah.
Thank you for your work and your vision.
Thank you.
Have you considered 3D printing? I know there's a builder in Texas that is using 3D printing, and they can do all kinds of shapes that normally you couldn't do.
Well, from what I've experienced of 3D printing, and it's not extensive, I must admit, I'm just wondering whether the use of the materials that they apply, which are synthetic, are going to be viable for the kind of vibration that we're looking at. I think probably not. You know, there's a reason that, say, Chartres Cathedral is built in stone. That's because the stone, under tension in the roof vault and so on, reaches a certain vibratory pitch, and that pitch resonates, and that's what you feel lifted by when you hear the organ or the choir or something. You feel it viscerally, whereas in an environment that doesn't have those qualities, that experience would not be there. And I feel that we're looking at something much more alive than that. But I must say that you're pointing out something that is very much akin to some of the thoughts I've had, and that is you know how crop circles have dazzled so many people. And I've often wondered, what is the technology they're using to create this? It's not something that's being built, because it's something that manifests within a short period of time, a very short period of time. And it's something that was like an alternate technology that drops an energetic field onto the field of wheat, and it shifts the growth pattern, and that is done instantly. And I'm thinking there may be some of this technology that we can engage, since we're using sacred geometry, which is a lot of what is being printed on the earth with the helps of this sacred geometry. There may be some way for us to engage that kind of intelligence, because frankly, I think we've got a possible link to that kind of mindfulness going forward. So, you see.
My name is Bill Smith, and I'm new to IONS, but I'd just like to support. I'm currently working with the International Society of Systems Sciences to get them.
Speaking to the mic.
I'm currently working with the International Society of Systems Sciences to get them to expand their view from science to include philosophy and politics, and to include spirituality and the social. And doing this in practice, I have found and experienced the absolute necessity for creating spaces with the right vibrations. And it's interesting to see that you've also recognized that there's not just the general vibration that transform to higher levels of purpose, but within that space too, there are different vibrations, and you have the three different laws that can reflect the different vibrations, different processes, and different methods and techniques to reach that level. So I'm very much in support of what you
say. Thank you, Bill. Thank you.
Where do you intend to build this?
Well, as I mentioned earlier, we're looking at possible sites, right? And it will be generally in Richmond area.
Richmond area?
Yes, right.
Yeah, the reason I ask is the different vibrations of different areas. Charlottesville has its own vibrations. Richmond has a different vibration. And right now, Hanover, I'm an appraiser and a real estate agent, so I know these areas. They do have different vibrations. So I was very curious. Charlottesville sounds cool to me, that area in Charlottesville.
Well, I'm going to take my own experience out of that equation, because I did find Charlottesville very attractive.
Mm-hmm.
in many ways. I think because we have so many people who are here in Richmond who are focused on developing it, it's natural, I guess, to be focused on building it here.
Good. I like that idea.
Yeah. And I'm very moved by what Thomas Jefferson brought here and through here. This has been a melting pot of civilization. I feel that what we're facing in terms of the quantum shift in our world will naturally be cultivated with the mindfulness that we're going forward. And I'm feeling that if a place other than Richmond is desirable to be open to it, you know, I think in this general area, I mean, it's certainly close enough. But another reason to have meet and greet is to explore various ideas and like to be transparent about these things.
Thank you.
Thank you. That's your input. So let's go on to the next phase. I'd like to introduce Trisha to come forward and to share something very sweet and dear.
Hi. Excuse me. Hi. So Lawrence had wanted to acknowledge the autumn equinox, that is today or tomorrow. And so he asked if we could find a poem. And Dave Dorrington over there has one. And I found a short that I thought very apropos to this evening. So there goes. The light and the dark are the same in length. They have equal time and equal strength. But soon the darkness will prevail, and the light and warmth will begin to pale. But do not be afraid, do not dismay, for this is the rhythm of nature's way. Rejoice in the abundance that this year bears. Breathe deep in the coolness and change in the air. Have gratitude and blessing keep toll, and may this shift of nature enlighten your soul.
Hello, and thank you all for joining us for this most inspiring presentation on the beautiful vision that Mr. Lawrence Schechter has for the MorningStar Retreat Center. Thank you, Lawrence. His vision is not just a dream, but a future reality that will bring healing, wisdom, and connection to our community. So I'd like to share with you the autumn equinox blessing. As we gather to honor this sacred turning point of the year, let us begin by savoring and celebrating the beauty and abundance that surrounds us. In this moment, we pause to appreciate all that we have created and received through the fertile months of spring and summer. Let us amplify the good feelings from our accomplishments, our growth, and the gifts that have graced our lives. May we take this time to truly honor the joy of what we have nurtured and witnessed blossom. Now, as the harvest season comes into full swing, we embrace the call to preserve, prepare, and share. Just as the earth offers us its bounty, We are invited to transform our harvest into something that can endure beyond this season. Let us preserve what nourishes us, whether it be physical, emotional, or spiritual, and prepare it to be shared with others. May we invite others into our circle of abundance, knowing that when we share, we magnify our blessings and strengthen the bonds of community. As the days grow shorter and the nights longer, we are reminded of the natural cycle of life. The energy of this season moves from expansion to contraction. This is a time to let go and go in. Allow the dead leaves of our lives to fall away, making room for stillness and reflection. As we turn inward, let us focus on what truly matters, preparing ourselves for the quietude of winter, when the seeds of our next growth cycle will take root. Trust that in this stillness, we are laying the foundation for the resurgence of life and expansion that will come in the spring. Blessings to you all in the season of transformation. Thank you.
And sink into this present moment as we present this offering as a token of our devotion to actualizing the co-creations of a unified and heart-based culture.
In service to support optimum wellness, physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually.
Savoring this bountiful season and fertilizing the seeds of our future growth and generations to come of our emergent collective consciousness.
Our intention is to model positive leadership to maximize the unique gifts of all the collaborators.
To allow us to remember that peace and happiness are the nature of our being. To vitalize joyfully our highest expressions, adaptability, creativity, innovation for the collective emergence.
May we receive the highest frequencies our vessels will allow, opening our hearts to give and receive unconditional love.
May we luxuriate in the generosity of each present moment, relaxing into divine orchestrations, allowing infinite possibilities to unfold for the highest good of all.
Relaxing into the mysteries, knowing that energy is eternal and ever expansive, embracing the luminous purity of the infinite. May our harmonious collaborations and co-creations result in joy, peace, abundance, and freedom.
So I'm going to wrap it up with my favorite verse from the Bible. To everything there is a season, a time and a purpose unto heaven. So as we close this event, look into your hearts and ask, what is your purpose? We invite you to share your purpose with this endeavor. And no matter what you do in your life, know that everything is happening in divine order, including MorningStar. Thank you.
I mentioned earlier, I just want to recap that we will have sign up rosters here for those who are interested to get connected and to move forward with us. And please get your contact information on those charts. We have a few minutes to gather that now, and then it may just go into our potluck buffet time as needed. But here they are, and thank you so much for being here and hearing what we have to share. And we hope to see some of you moving forward. Thank you.